We begin the Lombardi Line on this Thursday as we begin Week 10 in the NFL. Dave Ross and Michael Lombardi here with you. Michael, in the Commonwealth of Virginia today instead of Jersey, how is Virginia treating you so far?
So far, this weather, David, is the most unbelievable. We're in the 70s here in November. I mean, what is going on here with this world? I'll take it. It's nice. It's beautiful. It's good to be here with you today, to be back on the Lombardi Line again. So I'm excited. We got football starting tonight, which I can't wait. Obviously, a great game right down the road here from where I am in Baltimore. So, in fact, I drove by the stadium yesterday. So I'm sure they're getting ready to go, and it'll be a huge matchup and exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one there. And by the way, it's cold here in Vegas, Michael. 45 degrees when I'm driving in this morning. You got beautiful weather there in the Commonwealth. Let's get to that tilt tonight that you mentioned to kick off Week 10 because we do have the Bengals and the Ravens. This has been around 6. I saw some 5.5s, back up to 6 in a lot of spots here. We've been talking about it, you and I, all week, how this total has gone up to 53 tonight with that. But maybe if you're an overbacker, just know this, that it looks like you're probably not going to have T. Higgins tonight here for the Bengals. He is listed as doubtful. Charlie Jones, another wide receiver, is doubtful as well with the groin issue. And then we've got Orlando Brown Jr., and that's key on the offensive line. He is listed as questionable, as well as B.J. Hill is also questionable there for the Bengals. How significant is that on Cincinnati's side when you look at a couple of receivers, offensive tackle, and certainly in the defensive line?
Well, the last time they played, Dave, T. Higgins had 14 targets. Oof. Joe Burrow threw the ball 39 times. T. Higgins had 14 targets. Jamar Chase had 12. That's 26 of the 39 attempts going towards those two players. You take that out of the game, what happens? And then when you break it down, the other targets were really going to Moss, the running back, or Chad Brown, the other running back. Gesicki wasn't really involved in the offense at that point. Now, Gesicki has kind of picked up the pace. He's become their version of Tyler Boyd this year. Mm-hmm. Inside big receiver, can't run, doesn't do much with it after the catch. But this Higgins injury makes it a lot easier for Zach Orr and Dean Pease, the consultant for the Ravens, to come in and try to figure out how best do we want to play this. Look, you don't have to worry about the run game. They tried 23 rushing attempts, 3 of them at the end of the game, which was a complete disaster. They averaged 2.1. I mean, this is how bad Zach Taylor was in this game. He can't run the ball. He finally gets the break of the game, the turnover, and then he decides to try some long field goal with 3 rushing attempts when he can't even average 2 yards. And really, it was worse than that. Chad Brown had a 16-yard rush in the game, and if you take that run out of the equation, they're averaging under 2 yards per rush against the Ravens. If that happens, if Burrow's got to throw it 39 times, I just don't see how they can beat Baltimore.
And that feels like you're kind of alluding to the keys here for a Bengal victory, right? They've got to figure out a way to play some ball control because Baltimore, they'll possess it with the run game. They have no problem, keeping it 6-7 minutes if need be. Does Cincinnati have to play a game like that? Because if they play a shootout, we saw it. They almost won that shootout the first time around. But without T. Higgins, does it change the way they have to approach it offensively?
Well, the last time they played, it was right down the middle, right? Because it went down to overtime. So, Baltimore had the ball 33 minutes and 45 seconds. And, of course, Cincinnati had it 32-42. But to me, you got to take some of the pressure off of Joe Burrow. And without Higgins out there, Chase is getting doubled no matter where they put him. Now, they'll move him around and motion him and try to keep him inside and do some different things with him. But for the most part, they're going to take him out of the game. They're going to let Gesicki have as many catches as he can have because he's not going to hurt them. So I think, to me, the key to the game is they've got to find some balance in that run game, which they don't have. Now, they traded for Herbert from the Chicago Bears this week, and Joe Burrow said that he'll get him ready to play because all he'll do is tell him in the huddle what to do. Mm-hmm. But I still think that's a little harder without Orlando Brown. Look, the weakness of the Bengals is their offensive line. It's been this for a while, right? It's been this for a long time. They've valued skill over linemen. And now, their offensive line, Orlando Brown, they paid a lot of money. They have Mims at right tackle, who could be a good young player. But I think, to me, that's the difference in this game is they can't control the game with their offense because their offensive line isn't good enough.
You look at the other side here, maybe the key injury for the Ravens, they're not going to have Isaiah Likely tonight playing at tight end. Mark Andrews, maybe the demise of Mark is a little bit exaggerated, and maybe that target share is going to go up, obviously, without having Isaiah Likely in this game tonight. How significant is that, if at all, or they just have enough weapons that they can figure out a way to get by without Isaiah Likely here tonight?
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job of spraying the ball around. I think they've done a really good job of featuring other players, right? We're going to see Deontay Johnson, who they just added onto their roster. So we'll see what kind of role he will play to go along with Flowers and Bateman in their offense. Of course, as you mentioned, Mark Andrews is still a good player. So it isn't like they're down that tight end. The one thing that makes this team tough to defend is they've got the power to do that power run game, and then they can play that half court. They can play that spread offense. I mean, it's a little bit like playing the Lakers. You know, they can run and gun it, or they can get in a half court set and feed it to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and score 2 points, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Henry's Kareem, and you know, Flowers and the other guys are all the guys that run up and down the court. They're really got the power. They can do that. They can play different styles, and I think if you are Lou Amoromo, I mean, it's really challenging. B.J. Hill is one of your better defensive tackles, right? And so if you don't have him tonight, it's going to be hard to hold up inside and then hold up defending the length of the field along with the width.
You know, it's amazing to me, and I think about this all the time when I'm watching a game, say if I'm watching a Cowboy game and I'm going, well, what do I want the offense to do? What gives my defense the best chance to get off the field? Is it to stop the big rig? Do I want to tackle Derrick Henry? Or every time that Lamar drops back, I get nervous because I don't know what he's going to do, right? He can go over the top with it, or he can make a play with his legs. Are you winning on defense if Lou can say, all right, we're going to urge them to run the football? And that's a big task to stop Derrick Henry, but we'd prefer that over trying to stop Lamar.
I think you've got to be able to create an imbalance in one way or the other. And the only way you do that is stop the run, right? You've got to create them but a lot of this comes down to playing from in front too, which again, they were in that situation where they were in front, you know, but they couldn't close it out. They weren't able to, you know, they had the one turnover, they had 2 fumbles. They had the fumble in the game. They had the interception in the game, which really cost them. So I think that's the key is if you can play from in front, you know, and you get up 14 on them, and all of a sudden, you know, we saw this happen before, what the Chiefs did to them. The Chiefs were able to run the ball in the championship game, keep them off the field, you know, get up 17-0, make them panic, or get up 17-7, make them panic. But I don't see them do that because I think they've devoted themselves to Henry. Henry's their guy, right? And Lamar can do so many different things, and the way they've set up this run game out of their pistol formation, it really helps Lamar advance his game. I mean, Lamar's having a better season this year than he did when he won the MVP last year or when he won it 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm with you. I watch him play, and I go, he's playing at an actually higher level. Your eye test, too, watches it, and the numbers bear it out as well. So that's going to be a tough task. We've talked a lot about the Bengals in the last couple of weeks. As far as, you know, Joe Burrow to say, don't everybody relax, kind of like the old Aaron Rodgers. We're gonna win 9-10 games. We're gonna be okay. They are even money to make the postseason. Do you think that is? I don't know that that's a bet I want to have in pocket. You know, like 6-point underdogs tonight. You lose this one tonight, Michael, and you're really going to be up behind the 8 ball here.
Yeah, I just don't think they're good enough to be able to win. I mean, their defense isn't good enough. I mean, you just break down the numbers. I mean, they're not good on defense. They don't dominate in any carry. Hendrickson's a really good player, right? They certainly are he's a good player, but, you know, they struggle to stop the run. They struggle to be able to get on top. I mean, look, the teams can run the football on them. And, you know, one of the things they have an advantage of is they're 8th in the National Football League in rushing yards per attempt allowed, okay, which says, okay, they're pretty good. But teams are able to control the pace of the game. They're 28th in rushing attempts allowed, which means teams don't have a problem going 3.5, 3.5, 3.5 and getting first downs, you know? And I think that's the problem. And then when they get down to the red zone, they can't stop them from running the ball. They're 29th in touchdowns allowed down there. So, and then conversely, look, this is not where you want to be on any football team. They can't stop the run. They can't. They're 27th in yards gained on the ground. They're 24th in yards per attempt. I think, look, I felt like Mixon lost his lower body last year, wasn't the same back, but now he's regained it in Houston. Maybe this is just because of the lack of offensive line. I mean, they just can't create it. And if you can take Chase away and eliminate the big play, which is what they have to do in Baltimore, make this team be methodical, I think it becomes a problem. I think the Eagle game was the perfect example of this, right? The Eagle game, they were very good on third down. They were methodical moving down the field. But eventually, the longer the game went, the harder it became for Cincinnati to execute because they just don't have any physicality. Their team isn't really physical enough because of their approach by their coaching staff to just be a finesse team offensively.
Yeah, and I'm with you when I look at the rest of the schedule, right? And I go, okay, this is a 4-5 football team. Hey, they win tonight. It flips the whole equation. Everything changes if you can get a win tonight. But again, 6-point underdogs here on the road in Charm City.
But then they go to Los Angeles next week,
right.
David. Do you think there's any guarantee they win that game?
Absolutely not. Right. And
I mean, you got to be good. You know, when you start schedule watching, right, you got to be a really good team. Like, you got to give me evidence that you're really a good team. And look, they've had their moments. I mean, they had this Baltimore team down 10 points in the fourth. I mean, they picked up a fumble that was a gift of all gifts.
Yeah.
And of course, Zach Taylor decides to run the ball 3 times into the line. Like, what are we doing, Zach? What are we doing? We can't run the ball. We can't run the ball whenever. I mean, it was you go back to what you said earlier in the show. What would you want them to do? You want them to run the ball.
Right. That's how you win. Yeah, you're like, hey, you don't drop back Joe Burrow? Great. We'll take our chances trying to stop your run game. And again, I think it correlates here. The win total right now on the adjusted win total is 8.5. So you've got to win 9 games to even be in the playoff conversation. And 9 might not guarantee you that you're in.
That's right. That's right.
So a big game tonight. We're not saying it's do or die for the Bengals on their season, but you lose this one tonight and go to 4-6. Good luck trying to make it into the playoffs. That's going to be a tough order, that's for sure. Great show lined up today here, Michael, on this edition of the Lombardi Line. Good to have our buddy Harry Gagnon is going to be back with us later on this hour, and then Mike Palm is going to join me in studio in hour number 2. So got a lot of news and notes around the league, including one in Jacksonville that might be surprising. That's next here on the Lombardi Line.
Coming up Thursday on Follow the Money, big show. Ravens and the Bengals preview, picks and props, and fantasy with Paul Charchian. Steve Wist, a meat man on soccer as well. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole 9, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter. This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We continue the Thursday edition of the Lombardi Line. Dave Ross and Michael Lombardi here with you. And, Michael, we know that after you get through those Wednesday practices, you start to look at those injury reports. They can affect some of these line moves that we've seen here across the league. Let's start with the big one down there in Jacksonville. They're going to be hosting the Vikings. And when asked about Trevor Lawrence, who was limited in practice on Wednesday with a shoulder, we were told here that essentially, and I'll quote, Doug Peterson said, can't answer that. Can't answer that today, not sitting here Wednesday. Now, their season really hit the skids last year. Remember, they were 8-3, and then Lawrence had a series of ailments, and their season just spiraled. He's been healthy up until this point, and the season hasn't gone well. Now he's got a bad shoulder. The line has gone up to 4.5 on the Vikings side here from 4. I'm assuming it's correlated with that. What do we make of Lawrence trying to go but being limited on a Wednesday?
Well, I mean, Doug can say nothing, which is fine, but Doug's actions say a lot. They signed Kurt Beathard off of the Miami practice squad, brought him back to town, and put him on their active roster. That tells you a lot. That tells you all you need to know there, because what they're saying simply there is they're concerned about their quarterback. They needed to add a quarterback. When you make a roster move like that you're not just sitting there saying, oh, it's no big deal, right? You're sitting there saying, hey, we better protect ourselves, because if he can't go, we got to get somebody who we're familiar with that knows our offense that we could put in a game at a moment's notice, right? I think that's the key. So he brings C.J. Beathard back. You know, he's got Mac Jones on the team, but that tells me a lot. Why would you make that roster move if you didn't think he was going to be 100%? I think that's the concern. Now, the line moved from 4 to 4.5. I think that's considerable. We also know there's going to be wind in this game, right? There's going to be a windy. It's Florida. You know, we're getting a little bit there's a tropical storm going through down in the bayou. Not that I'm a weatherman, but we're going to have over 10-mile-an-hour winds here for the game, which can affect the game. So I think you got to be really looking at this. The temperatures are going to be hot. It's going to be humid. It's going to be 80 degrees, which could affect Minnesota. And I think if Jacksonville's smart, they let Minnesota wear those purple uniforms instead of what they did the last time. When Green Bay played down there, Green Bay got to wear their white jerseys, and Jacksonville took the dark ones. I didn't understand that at all. Yeah,
let's heat them up if you're coming down from the north. Yeah. If you're Minnesota, right, make them wear the purple. It is interesting because I think traditionally, Michael, right, we go, man, I don't want to back road dogs, right? And certainly it's going up against me now. It's up to 4.5. But you can understand the line move, certainly if Lawrence is banged up. But, two, it's been kind of untraditional in the NFL, where road favorites have been doing just fine this year. Are we starting to get to the point where, sure, there's still home field advantages out there, but it doesn't feel like it's as big a deal as it used to be in yesteryear?
Well, I think because of the disparity in the league, I think we have so many have-nots and we have a few haves that I think that it shows that home field doesn't give you that extra bump, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, typically you would want to take Jacksonville in the 4.5 here. You know, you figure we have so much parity going on in the National Football League that it would be the perfect place to take them, a road dog. But, you know, we've got all these teams that are 2-7 and 3-6. I mean, there are just not a lot of good teams in the league. And what we've learned this year, at least I have, from really not doing a very good job of handicapping, of predicting outcomes, should I say, is the fact that there's some of these bad teams just can't. And the teams that have won 2 games, they just beat up on each other. Like if the Giants beat Carolina and go to 3 wins, the Giants have beaten Seattle, right? I mean, they've beaten Cleveland, 2 bad teams, and now they're going to beat Carolina. Are they any good just because they won 30 games? No, I don't think so. I think that's the problem. There's a huge line of demarcation when you go through it, you know, and we're going to get to my power rankings later in the show. But, you know, I think when you get to down where New Orleans is, you've got a lot of teams that are just not good enough.
Totally. And I'm going to be very curious to see where you have the Chiefs on your power ratings when we get there a little bit later on, because Patrick Mahomes, Michael, I don't know what goes on the tent, because I remember watching this thing on Monday night thinking, oh, no, 15's done. Chiefs season's over. Everything's changing, right? He pops out of the tent, Michael, and he's Superman. He's fine at practice this week. Everything's good with the ankle. Andy says he's not going to limit him. I mean, it's great to see because I want to see the great players play. But the number has come down. I've seen 7.5s out there as well against the Broncos. That's not because of Mahomes and the ankle, right? We have to go with the info that he's fine.
I think Denver isn't one of those bad teams. I think Denver's a mediocre team, right? And I think Denver's one of those teams that you could not necessarily against Baltimore because that's a hard team for them. But Denver's played Kansas City well in the past, right? And I think to me, even though it's Bo Nix going into Kansas City with crowd noise and the environment so difficult, that, you trust in Sean Payton. I mean, look, he went in there, Russell Wilson ended up going in there. Remember the game 2 years ago where they just got behind so far and they end up coming storming back against them? I think this is really the coordinator matchup that you have to look at if you take the points. You're saying Sean knows how to play Steve Spagnuolo. You're saying he understands how to run the ball. He'll give Bo Nix some chances. Will they win the game? I don't know, but will they cover the 7.5? You got to really say to yourself, yeah, that could be. Now, we also know that, weather could be a factor in this game, too, because there is storms in Colorado. I mean, Colorado's expecting a bunch of snow today. I don't know how long it's going to last, but, I think to me, this is a game that's going to have, decent wind volume, and it's going to be it could have some precipitation because it's partly cloudy. 9-mile, 10-mile-an-hour winds, which could affect the game. They got Brad Allen, who favors the home team as well.
Yeah, and so we'll figure out how those winds affect the teams there in Arrowhead on Sunday. Bryce Young, by the way, we apologize to Germany and their fans in advance. You're going to get the Panthers and the G-men here to open up.
Daniel Jones.
How about
Bryce
that?
Young.
But we get Bryce. I can't believe this. You and I were talking before the show. This number's up to 6.5, Michael, and you think this is like a fade of like, man, Bryce Young's playing? I got to back the G-man.
I think it could only be the only thing. I mean, yesterday I gave it, the Giants were at 5. I thought it was a good play at 5. Now it's up to 6.5. You got Sean Hockley going over there. It's going to actually, we're going to have really November football weather in Germany. I mean, it's going to be in the 40s, no rain, very light winds over there. So that's a good thing. You got Sean Hockley doing the game. But I think to me, this is really about Carolina and about they have no receivers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about their team. I mean, they traded Deontay Johnson away, right? Not that he was a great receiver, but they traded him away. And then they go ahead and and then they trade Mingo away. So, like, who is Bryce Young throwing the ball to? Right? I mean, right now they have David Moore, they have Xavier Leggett, who's a good player, and then they have a free agent from 24. They have 3 receivers technically on their team. That's all they have. Now, I'm sure they're going to bring up. I'm sure they're going to bring up some of the guys from their practice squad, but are they really going to dent it? Is Darnell Mims going to be, or Dak Milan going to be able to do anything? I mean, does that scare you?
No. Boy, if you're the G-men.
I think, to me, you're saying you have no quarterback, and who are the weapons you're throwing the ball to?
Yeah, good luck, Germany. Enjoy that one on Sunday. Nico Collins.
We'll be, but you say that, but you and I will be watching it.
Oh, of course.
I'll be watching it.
I'm getting up early to watch it, of course. I disparage them now, and yet I'll be enjoying it for 3 hours on Sunday morning. Nico Collins looks like he's not going to be able to go. He did not practice with that hamstring. And also, bad news on the other side of the ball, Will Anderson didn't practice as well. Boy, you think you need those key cogs in the machine if you're H-Town.
He got hurt against the Jets. He came back, wasn't the same guy against the Jets with that ankle. To me, Houston, if they don't have Nico Collins, I think if you like Detroit, you better grab this line now because this is going to go up to 4. Because if Nico doesn't practice today and they don't start his clock, forget about him practicing. When they initiate the 21-day window is really what matters, right? We saw that with Puka Nacua.
Right.
We weren't sure he was going to play against Minnesota on that Thursday night game, and they initiated his 21-day window, so you knew he had a chance to be activated. If they don't initiate the window, then he has no chance to be activated. So we'll know more today. But look, let me just say this to you. I think this game goes to 4 if he's out, because really Houston's beat up right now. They're beat up, and I think this Detroit team just is rocks and rolls. I mean, no one is playing it. I mean, no one wants to give the Houston any love. It's one of the lowest bet teams of the week.
Totally agree with you there. And somebody who was on the Vikings that night, I wish that Puka Nacua had not played. He destroyed the Vikings on that Thursday night, and certainly my wager. By the way, everybody out there, if you have not done so already, you need to take advantage of our all-new VSiN Watch app. It's going to make it very easy to listen, watch wherever you are, like Michael's in Virginia today. You can always check it out on the Apple App Store, or you go to Google Play, and you can download the VSiN Watch app. You're going to get 24/7 access, live audio, video stream, watch replays of your favorite show, like the Lombardi Line. Easily stream video to your smart TV. Browse those clips by sport report. You can search the search feature and find specific VSiN expert insights that you're interested in. The VSiN Watch app is free to download for both Apple and Android users. Do not delay. Do so today. Visit the Apple or Google App Store now. Download it. It's the VSiN Watch app, and you can become part of the Sports Betting Network. We do have a lot more to get to. I want to get to that Cowboy and Eagle game here in more depth as the show goes on. But, Michael, very quickly, a lot of injuries on both sides now, right? Maybe Jalen Hurts isn't as healthy as people think?
Yeah, I think that line moved from 7.5 down to 7, which was interesting. I'll tell you the other line we have to talk about coming back is this New Orleans line, Atlanta. That was 4, and now it's 3.5, and it looks like it's going to go to 3. There's some momentum in New Orleans. I don't understand it, but there is.
Maybe it's that interim coach bump. We'll find out how the Saints look here the first week without Dennis Allen at the helm of that ship. Okay, when we come back, Harry Gagnon's going to join the program. Can't wait to get his picks, what he sees this week in week number 10 in the NFL. That's next here on the Lombardi Line.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup, then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Well, we continue the Thursday edition of the Lombardi Line. Dave Ross and Michael Lombardi here with you. And with Lombardi Line back, Michael, it's really fun to have a lot of your guys back on the show that we miss talking to on a regular basis. So we get Harry Gannan to join us again. He is the host, of course, of Against All Odds. Joins us on the Progressive Guest Line. You can follow Harry on X at AAO. Harry, how are you? You said the weather's getting a little bit nicer where you are these days?
What's up, guys? Yeah, down here in Scottsdale, the weather's a little bit better. No more 110-degree days, thank God. It was a brutal summer. So now, I mean, it extended into the very early parts of this month of November, but now now we're done with that. We're back into we're in the 80s and sometimes 90s, but that's fine. It's great. Football has been really it's been great. It's been tough handicapping these games, guys, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is the time of year, Michael and I were just talking about it, where you have to start looking at the weather around the country. We've got Thursday night football, right? Tonight in Charm City with the Bengals and the Ravens. We saw 6 dip down to 5.5, back up to 6. We got some injuries, weather to take into account. How do you break down this Thursday night game here between the Bengals and the Ravens?
Yeah, I'm taking Cincinnati. I'm going to take the points here. They have won 3 of 4. They're fighting to get back into playoff contention. And since 2021, guys, Cincinnati has either won or lost by 3 or less versus Baltimore in 7 of 8 games. Burrow getting 6 seems solid in the division game. They kind of have to have. Chase Brown is coming off the Bengals' first 100 yards rushing game of the season. Mike Gesicki versus the Raiders had the first 100-yard receiving game in a month for the Bengals. Bengals getting 6 here in Baltimore. Tight game the first time they played. Bengals probably should have won that one. Give me the 6 with the Bengals, guys.
Yeah. The one bet I really think you're right, you like about, and I understand what you're saying about the Bengals and the 6.5, and you get 6.5, there's 6.5 out there. I think to me, when you watch the Bengals offense, the over 23.5 completions, to me, this kind of goes in line to your Bengals take the points pick. Because if they're going to have any chance to keep the game close, it's not on the ground. It's going to be through the air, and he's going to have to complete more than 23 passes.
Yeah, he had a monster game the first time they played. I'll get to that in a second too, Michael. But yeah, Burrow in his last 2 games, 27-26 versus Vegas and Philly. Yeah, he had a season high, 30 in the first matchup versus Lamar and the Ravens earlier in the season. Like I said, he's had at least 31 attempts in 6 of his last 8 games. And Joe has gone for 23 completions or more in 5 of his last 6 regular season games versus Baltimore. Give me Burrow over 23.5 completions tonight, guys.
You would think they try to use some of the short passing game, too, maybe keep control of the clock, keep it out of Lamar's hands. So like that play as well with the over 23.5. Going to lay it there at, minus $1.28. Chase Brown's going to have to carry a lot of the load here in the backfield, we know these days. And I think you like him to score tonight, Harry?
Yeah, guys, listen, I like Chase Brown to have an anytime touchdown at minus 120. Even take a little shot at 7-1 for first touchdown of the game. Zach Moss is out, so it's Chase Brown who's the number 1 running back from the backfield for the Bengals now. Brown is a guy who can catch a touchdown pass and not just run it in. He's got 2 during the air this year, 4 on the ground. He had a career high 32 touches last week, and he also had the first touchdown of the year earlier this season when they beat the Panthers by 10. And he scored in 5 of the last 6 games again for the Bengals. Chase Brown, 7-1 for first touchdown and minus 120 anytime touchdown, guys.
Hey, Harry, before we get into the college and some of your college plays, I want to ask you live in Arizona. You kind of have a feel for their team down there. Are you surprised how well they're playing and how they kind of cover the spread and kind of take teams away? And I don't know where you are on this Jet game. I know this line has flipped constantly between them being a favorite to being a 1-point dog to being a pick'em game. But what's your overall take of the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, the defense is coming around. The defense has been fantastic. They shut down the Bears from beginning to end last week. But more than anything, Michael, Kyler Murray, very underrated this season. His numbers are very good. which I've always said about what he needs to do. He needs to run more. He's doing that this year. He's averaging about 45 yards a game running the ball, keeping drives alive, putting points on the board. They're like third in the league in rushing the ball overall. Connor's been fantastic too. This team's averaging over 5 yards a carry as a whole unit. That's what's getting it done. Murray's keeping drives alive. Gannon's doing a fantastic job with his team. It's pretty surprising, but still overall, this team, and if you look at them, Mike, by the way, they're plus 220 to win the division. People might just be like, oh, well, San Francisco, they'll get McCaffrey back and they're really going to be there. Maybe so, but a plus 220 to win the division, they've already beaten San Francisco. They have the best record in the division. And if you look at the schedule right now, San Francisco's got a killer schedule. This has got Detroit. This has got Miami, who's playing better. Right now, the Cardinals, the only team right now that they would play, if you look at the schedule today, that's over 500 the rest of the way, is the Vikings. That's it.
Plus $1.70 right now. I think people are picking up what you're putting down, Harry. And you mentioned that first game against the Niners. They won that game in San Francisco, kind of have that half game in hand right now before that second matchup, which will come at the desert there in Arizona. Let's flip it over to college football. And a big one in the SEC is going to be those Dogs from Georgia taking on Ole Miss. And I think you think offense Ole Miss, you think defense Georgia. I know it's not that simplistic of a handicap, but Harry, how do you break it down? And do you think you have an edge here in the total?
I do. I think I'm still going to go over 54.5 here, guys. Look, last week, Ole Miss put 63 on the board at Arkansas. Jackson Dart had over 500 yards, broke Matt Corral and Eli Manning's record for passing yards in a game. Wide receiver Jordan Watkins on 8 receptions had 5 touchdowns. And on the Georgia side, Carson Beck has in 3 of his last 5 games, 309, 440, and 460 passing yards. Georgia has scored at least 30 points in 7 of 8 games. 69 points were scored in this matchup last year. And you got 2 quarterbacks here, like I said, in Beck and Dart, who are stars, who can light up the scoreboard. Give me over 54.5 in this game. I got 31-27. Not sure who's going to win this one. Mississippi could pull a shocker here. I'm going to go 31-27 over 54.5.
And you like also UNLV this week too, Harry.
You know what? Why not UNLV, Michael? Why not? I'm gonna lay the. You can get. I see 12.5. I've seen 13. They've been fantastic. They've been a fun. More than anything, guys. They've been a fun team to watch. The Running Rebels, 6-2 overall, but they're 4-0 on the road this year, and they're actually 8-1 straight up in their last 9 away from Sin City. The Rebels did beat Hawaii last year by 24. UNLV's averaging 41 points per game this year. Rebels roll the rainbows. I'm laying the 12.5, 13. Go UNLV.
Very quickly, we saw that the first college football playoff rankings came out this week here, Harry, for college football. I'm looking down the board a little bit at a team we've talked a lot about here on the network all throughout the summer, and that's Colorado. What do you make of what Coach Prime is doing there? They're 2-1, by the way, to make the college football playoff. Do you think they're still in play to possibly win their conference, and or is that a reasonable bet at this stage of the season?
No, I mean, I'll tell you what, that conference is kind of like the wild card right now, because you have BYU who's leading it. They've been fantastic. They go on the road. They win the games. They won a non-conference game against SMU, a close one. So that was a very interesting game, and they're a very interesting team. But Colorado against Texas Tech this week, very tough matchup. Texas Tech pulls a shocker against Iowa State. So you have these teams that are still battling. Iowa State's still in the mix to win the division, to win the conference. Texas Tech could still do it like with 2 losses, like I said. But Colorado has been fantastic, especially more than anything. You'd think it's from their offense. It's been their defense lately that's really risen to the occasion for them. It's going to be a fun game this week against Texas Tech. Henry, right now, if you look at it, Henry, all of a sudden, he's like the favorite for the Heisman. He took over Dylan Gabriel of Oregon. So a lot of things going on for Colorado this week. A lot of things where it's flip-flop in that Big 12, which is a wild division and wild conference. So a lot of things could happen. I don't know if they pulled it. I don't know if they beat Texas Tech. I like the way Texas Tech runs their offense lately, but still a lot of stuff to go down. Deion's been fantastic. Got to give him credit this year.
Hey, Harry, who do you have for your Heisman?
You know what? At the beginning of the season, Michael, I'm against all odds when we did it with me and Sal and the guys. I gave out Dylan Gabriel. I know didn't have a great game last week. Didn't put up a lot of big numbers against Michigan. But I still went with Gabriel. I think, you look at his numbers overall when he went to Oklahoma, and then before that, even at Central Florida, the guys put up tremendous numbers. I think still, maybe they close out the season and he puts up big numbers. He could still override Henry. But boy, Henry playing defense and offense, I think they're really pushing him even more than Ward at Miami. And you look at Ward at Miami, all he does is put up 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. And Miami, no matter how many times they squeak by in these games, they win these games. So you got to consider him too.
Yeah, I still can't believe they beat Virginia Tech, or the officials flipped that call, Harry.
That was something, wasn't it?
2-1, by the way, for Cam Ward right now is still the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Harry, great to have you back in the program, my friend. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Great having Harry join us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Yeah, Michael, it's fascinating looking at those numbers. Travis Hunter is plus 220 to win the Heisman. They're plus 350 to win the Big 12. Come on back, more NFL talk next here on the Lombardi Line.
The world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertips. Hi, I'm Derek Stevens. I'm a lifelong sports bettor, and I'm the owner of Circus Sports. It's sports betting the way it should be, with transparent and high betting limits, tight money line splits, exceptional customer service, and more. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Start betting like a pro from anywhere in Nevada.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VSiN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VSiN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VSiN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VSiN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We are back on the Lombardi Line here on a Thursday. Great having Harry Gannan in the last segment. Going to have Mike Palm join us in hour number 2 in studio here, Michael. And again, yesterday on the show, you did an amazing job. Your story about Jimmy Snyder, how he became Jimmy the Greek. And you mentioned it was all in Steubenville, Ohio. And I had mentioned that's where my mother was from. She watched the show, and then Mom corrected me, Michael. Martins Ferry. She was born in Martins Ferry. The family had moved from Steubenville to Martins Ferry. So I'm not great in my Ohio geography, but I'm getting better.
That's okay. But hopefully she enjoyed the story. And,
she loved it.
It just tells you, really it's a story that affects our network. And if the people that listen is you have to block out noise and you've got to kind of simplify it. It's like, we spent the last 3 months listening to polls. Every day we had a poll, and it's like, it's noise. It's noise, People, you have to kind of pay attention and look for the non-obvious. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me in this football season is you're counting on, you're assuming some things with some teams to get better. And I'm not counting on how bad the coaching is or how bad the level. I mean, just the fact that the Giants are a 6.5-point favorite against any team in the league is remarkable.
I think it's a great point. If you missed it again, VSiN.com, you can go there and catch the whole story of Jimmy the Greek. And by the way, again, it's almost like have courage of your conviction. You've got power ratings. We're going to get to those power rankings here in 1 second, but have courage in what your numbers are telling you. And don't always listen to everybody and all that outside noise that Michael is alluding to. And by the way, before we reveal your power ratings, you can become a VSiN Pro subscriber. If you do it today, you're going to get access to your daily best bets. It gives you a leaderboard showing you who's got the current hot hand. You get 19 hours of live programming, power strength, and better ratings. You're going to get exclusive betting splits with trends and analysis. It's going to make you a better bettor, that's for sure. So start off with that VSiN Pro subscription today, as little as $9.99. See everything that VSiN has to help up your betting game. Sign up today, VSiN.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. So again, you can get all of your power rankings there, all of your top quarterbacks from 1 to 32. I want to go to your top 10 and start off with 1 through 5. And again, courage of your numbers and of what the data is telling you and what your eyes are telling you too, Michael, when you look at the top 5, because it's not just by win-loss record.
No, this is strictly 18 categories that I break down every week that I think determine the outcome of games. And some of them are as simple as how many punts per play you force defensively. I think that's an important number. How many red zone attempts do you get during the course of a game? Not red zone conversions, but how many red zone attempts do you get? How many do you allow? I mean, there's certain characteristics that go into the game that kind of paint the picture. And as you do that, you accumulate over those 18 categories. They're only graded 1 through 32. And so you add up the total numbers of those teams, and you come up with Detroit being at 138 and Buffalo being at 148 and Baltimore, and you start to go through it. And then when you try to handicap the game, you take those numbers and put them up against what we would say would be, to come up with a line. Everybody, but to me, what you try to do in anything is take subjectivity out of it, right? You want to take that away from the game because, that's what gets us all in trouble is we think this is going to happen or we assume this is going to happen when in reality, that's just probably a false assumption, which leads you down a false track. So my numbers this year, I think are becoming more alive in terms of when I look back on last week's numbers, for example, in the games that, I didn't go with my numbers when I made the Russo picks and it kind of cost me, and I think that was a real problem. And I think to me, you have to kind of stay disciplined to it with your numbers. For example, the Giants game I had at 6.5 points, the spread, the line was 3.5. I should have taken Washington. I just stayed away from the game. I talked myself out of it. Jacksonville, whenever I see a disparity of points, for example, when you look at the Rams game, I had the Rams as the favorite in the game. Felt like, and it was going to be, and I just stayed away from them. And then Cincinnati and Vegas, I didn't have that game. I didn't have that game the right way. I kind of thought it would be a closer game, and since he blew it out. See, I think the hardest part for me, Dave, is because there's only 32 categories a team can get, some of these teams are worse than the actual category.
Wow.
Right?
So you can't grade them any lower.
You can't grade them any lower. So sometimes when bad plays bad, right? When bad plays bad, it's hard to handicap that.
Right. And by the way, your top three have not changed from last week. You still have the Lions, Bills, and Ravens 1, 2, 3. But 4, as I think where people are going to go, whoa, that's a big move for Fly Eagles Fly this week as the Eagles get into your top 5.
Well, I think when you look at the Eagles, that the schedule has really favored them lately, right? Since the bye week, they're a different team.
Yeah.
They've played much better defensively. Those numbers continue to go up defensively. And offensively, they have decided to run the football. They're a 54% run team now. They really commit to the running game, and they understand that Barkley is their offense. It's run, throw it down the field. Run, throw it down the field. Control the pace of the game. I think they've done a really good job of that. I think you have to look at that, and they've improved in that area. And so I think the improvement of their defense, the improvement of the definition of their offense, the identity of their offense has given them a much better chance to win these games. Now, look, you can't apologize for who you're playing, right? I mean, that just goes with the territory, right? You can't put a bad team on you can only play who you can play. But I think Philly has made it very clear that, since the bye, they've played Cleveland, the Jets, Cincy, and Jacksonville. No good teams. They're playing Dallas this week, not a good team. But they've been very effective. They haven't allowed more than 18 first downs in any game. They've allowed last week only 14 first downs Jacksonville got. Jacksonville only had 215 yards of offense. And in the last 2 weeks, they've turned the ball over 5 times. And they've only had 1 turnover in the last 4 weeks. So they're +4 in the turnover takeaway. They're playing their best football right now. And to me, I think if that line keeps coming down to Dallas, you almost got to think about laying the points and taking Philly.
I'm not going to make the comparison of the Eagles last year when you look at the Chiefs, but I think we kind of knew what with the Eagles, 10-0, right? We went, well, it doesn't feel like they're really that good, right? Very good, but just in the context of being undefeated. Is that the same way you look at the Chiefs? The defense is very good. You got the best quarterback out there. We all get that in 15, but that's why they're 5 and not 1, correct?
They're beatable. They are beatable. Now, I mean, it's hard to beat them. Don't get me wrong, but they're not. Look, I think this is one of Andy Reid's best coaching jobs because he's trying to manage around. He knows he doesn't have the most explosive offense. He's being very, very careful in what he's doing. And they're able to win. They're able to take advantage of the games and win close games. They beat up on a San Francisco team that wasn't really healthy. The Raider game was not as close as the score indicated. But to me, they could have lost to Baltimore, could have lost to Cincy, and could have lost to Atlanta. Those 3 games. And the Chargers played without their starting quarterback and had it was a 7-point game before, So I think there's a way to beat Kansas City. You just got to be really good at doing it. These bad teams aren't going to do it.
No, they're not.
Denver could do it this week.
Yep.
Denver could do it this week. But look, they've only given up a 100-yard rusher 1 time this year. The opening game, the Baltimore ran for 185. San Francisco ran for 101, but a lot of that was at the end of the game.
Right.
But for the most part, you're going to have to figure out how to run the football against them if you're going to win because you're not going to throw the ball 45 times and think you're going to be able to be successful.
Very quickly, and again, you can get the whole list here at VSiN.com when you're a VSiN Pro subscriber. Your top quarterbacks and the way they're playing right now, if I'm getting that correct, for your top 5. And I want to talk about number 5. Because I don't think enough people are talking about what KCH's doing down there in the ATL. You've got Kirk in the top 5, the way they're playing right now.
First time I put him in there, and I think you can't ignore it. I mean, I think he's really carrying a team that's not great defensively, but they're playing from in front. I mean, he's throwing the ball very effectively. He isn't turning it over. They're 8th in the league in yards. In yards gained in there. They've done a really good job of throwing the football. He hasn't turned it over. He's been careful with the ball. And I think, to me, you can't really go by, they haven't beaten anybody. Look, they beat Tampa and Philly, Dallas the last 2 weeks. Now they have New Orleans and Denver before they go to a bye. I think those are 2 games that may be a little harder because New Orleans played them really good the first time. Mm-hmm. I mean, New Orleans should have beaten them in that game. New Orleans got some bad pass interference calls against them that cost them that game. And then they beat Tampa the next week in overtime, and Tampa had every opportunity to win that game. But I think, look, this team we started out, they lost to Philly, they lost to Pittsburgh, they could have lost to Philly, but they were able to come back. And when they've been fortunate, I think we're not sure how good they are, but one thing we are sure is how good Cousins is playing.
Yeah, he's playing great. It's great to see, too, because I was a little bit concerned, aging player coming off a devastating injury. How would he look that first year back? He looks great. After not playing at all in the preseason, he looks really, really good here for the ATL. Okay, we have a lot to get to in hour number 2, Michael. So we're going to have Mike Palm join us in studio. We'll get to what's on your mind here as well and really dive into this Thursday night matchup tonight in Charm City between the Bengals and the Ravens. That's going to kick off week number 10 in the NFL. So don't go anywhere. Come on back. Hour number 2, straight ahead of the Lombardi Line.
Sports bettors, this is your chance. VSiN is bringing you an unbeatable deal. Get a VSiN Pro